Hello, welcome back to Firesense Gaming. My name is Ben, and today we're going to continue on with Suzerain Rizia. So, last time out, we had a potentially productive meeting with the Queen of Rumburg, as well as a very awkward and not so great visit with Hugo and Rico. And now we're apparently visiting the Scarlet Kingbird Festival, whatever that is. Let's check it out here. Every spring, the seaside town of Salabe celebrated the Scarlet Kingbird Festival. The vibrantly colored songbirds spent their winters in China, near the southern part of what used to be the Moser Empire. Every spring, like clockwork, they flew back over the Gulf of Mordia to settle in Salabe. Their return was celebrated with music, dancing, and lavish banquets, opened by a speech from the reigning Duke of Salabe. It was traditional for the King of Rizia and his family to attend. The sun hung low in the sky over the Arena Salabe, a 100-year-old open-air venue perched directly on the beach. Vina and I sat waiting in the royal box as cameras flashed in our direction. My daughter impatiently tapped her fingers on the arm of her chair. We hadn't spoken much since Isa. Are you corresponding with Rico these days? What? No, I was about ready to murder him after the Isa trip. Nice. A fanfare sounded from the pit orchestra, and an announcer sat behind the podium. This year, he said, the speech would be given not by the Duke of Salabe, but by the heir of House Sazon. The audience roared as Manus Sazon got on stage. This was no longer the nervous young man I had met in Port Trezon. He radiated confidence as he stepped up to the podium. Greetings, Salabanes. He waited for the applause to subside, then held up a hand for the audience to listen. The entire arena fell silent. The story of the Scarlet Kingbird is a story about trust. Every year, this tiny feathered creature travels thousands of kilometers to reach our shores. He doesn't know what perils await him on the way to his destination, nor what sort of welcome will await him there. Yet he flies on because something deep within his soul compels him to do so. An inner voice that tells him, this is your home. Huh, the kid has charisma. Shh. Vina glared at me, then turned her full attention back to the man on stage. And what of those who wait for him? They have no idea where he's been or how he knows to navigate to this exact same spot each time. Still, they gather here, scanning the skies for the first sign of his return. As if on cue, a solitary bird came flying toward us from over the horizon. Its plumage was bright red. A tear rolled down Manus' cheek. Trust, it's the only way any of this works, even when we've been given no reason. Even when our faith is tested over and over. A second bird followed, then a third. It's only when we place our trust in one another that we are able to find our way. The audience gasped as the sky over our heads filled with hundreds and hundreds of kingbirds, their crimson feathers magnificently lit by the setting sun. Not sure here. Let's go with that. Timing the speech perfectly with the migration? What a cheap trick. I don't see anything cheap about it. Venus sniffled. She had tears in her eyes as well. And once the sun had set and the birds had gone to roost, we made our way to the VIP reception in the neighboring pavilion. A big band was playing jazz music as Vina and I entered. We immediately found ourselves surrounded by local officials, celebrities, and members of the press. It was nearly an hour before I was able to sit down. Almost as soon as I parked myself in a chair, I noticed Manus Sazon making his way over to me. Mr. Sazon, a pleasure to see you again. Manus smiled and shook my hand. Actually, I've been hoping to speak with you for a long time. I'm sorry I haven't visited the House of Delegates yet. It's been a busy time. I understand, Your Majesty. The Zeal incident rattled us all, my family included. But I still think we have a chance to accomplish great things for this country. All right, I'll indulge you. Tell me what you have in mind. Well, Your Majesty, I joined the House of Delegates because of Duchess Azaro, because my father's rash act of violence robbed Rizia of the peaceful transition it deserved. The remaining Sazons and I are in agreement. Our citizens need not shed blood to be granted a voice. A peaceful transition to what? Manus traced the rim of his wineglass with his finger. Rizia already has a framework in place to become a true constitutional monarchy, a place where citizens have a greater say in the lawmaking process, but the royals keep their status and influence. I don't want to make assumptions, but could it be that your aims are the same as mine? They are, and I believe there may come a time when we can act on them. Of course, I never presumed to tell the King of Rizia how the country should be run. Just know that should you choose to lead Rizia in a more democratic direction, we are prepared to back you. How, exactly, would you back me? Think of us as your conduit to the Rizian public. If you have enough support from them, the other houses won't dare go against you. Let's go with the top one. I agree with the idea of reforming Rizia and empowering our legislative body. It is my wish that we work together to make it a reality. Manus' eyes lit up. He smiled confidently. We can discuss this back in the capital, Your Majesty. Come to the House of Delegates. You should have an idea how the current system works before we begin talking about how to fix it. Don't get too excited. I'm not promising anything yet. With a smile, he stood up and pushed back his chair. I've taken up enough of your time. If you'll excuse me, I'll freshen up my drink. He turned around to head to the bar and came face to face with Vina, who was returning to our table. Her face was slightly flushed. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Sazon. Nothing to excuse, Your Highness. I hope you're enjoying your time in Salome. I was speaking to the bartender. He's still trying to get the rest of his family out of Dirtia. I told him I'd see what I could do. Mani smiled warmly. That's very noble of you, but there are thousands like him, and not all of them are lucky enough to catch the Princess of Rizia at a benevolent moment. I mean, he's right. We've got to tackle this problem at the root, not by granting special favors. Vina ignored my remark. Your speech was beautiful, Mr. Sazon. Actually, it reminded me of an essay from Queen Liza from 1883. On social contracts, yes, that was one inspiration. What were the others? The band began playing Sweetheart of Ventry City, an upbeat tune that had recently reached us from Arcasia. You know what? Tell me after this dance. She took a step closer towards Manus and extended a hand to him. He looked at me questioningly. You don't need my permission. Have fun out there. Vina beamed. Manus took her hand and rose from his seat. Wait, this is faster than dance I've been learning. Do you know the steps? As a matter of fact, I do. I'll walk you through it. He led Vina out onto the dance floor. Cameras flashed as the two of them started dancing. I wondered if the photographers were capturing the look in my daughter's eyes. It was the same one her mother had given me during our first dance together. Yeah, it seemed pretty obvious she had a crush on him. Alright, well, let's see here. Let's check out this report from the Grand Duchy of Palais first here. Rizian Oil and Gas continues assessment of new gas field. The Rizian Oil and Gas Corporation is continuing its assessment of the newly discovered gas field off the country's coast, tentatively nicknamed Aureus. In cooperation with the Palesian scientists, a team of geologists has begun seismic surveys to determine the field's exact borders. It is expected that the surveys will be completed within the next several months. Cool, that could be very useful. Alright, so we've got 3 newspaper articles. So we got two of them here from the Royal Herald. So first up, Suzerain Rizia gives speech about trust, but can he be trusted? In a recent display of audacity, Rizian People's Party leader and House Suzerain heir Manu Suzerain chose to grandstand about trust at the Scarlet Kingbird Festival, the largest annual event in Brainos. The choice of topic seems steeped in irony, given his well-documented skepticism towards the monarchy that forms the bedrock of our kingdom. In front of an audience that included His Majesty King Romus and Her Highness Princess Vina, he gave an emotional speech that left many Suzerain supporters teary-eyed, but that left us at the Herald wondering about his true motivations. One couldn't help but wonder if the decision to grant the opening speech to young Manus instead of the Mayor of Solibay was intent by House Suzerain to capitalize on a royal event for political gain. I mean, that is certainly a good question. And Rufus Gragg's royal gossip. Vina dances at last. Well, now we know what it takes to get Her Highness off her seat under the ballroom floor. A request from the dashing and dangerous young heir to House Suzerain. VIP visitors to this year's Scarlet Kingbird Festival were treated to the sight of Princess Vina and Duke Manus making goo-goo eyes at each other while cutting a rug. Just a polite dance, or something more? And what, oh what, will their father say? Stay tuned, dearest readers. Alright. And from Geopolitico, President Walker boosts welfare, faces economic challenge. President Dwight Walker's strategic choice to swell Arcazia's welfare spending through deficit financing has emerged as a double-edged sword, quelling social unrest but catapulting the nation's debt-to-GDP ratio to the brink at 90%. This fiscal gambit has earned political dividends, quashing protests and buoying Walker's approval ratings. Yet it has simultaneously contributed to a dip in public support for Charles Devereux of the Reformist Union. The Walker administration now faces the daunting task of upholding social welfare commitments while steering the Arcazian economy through an increasingly precarious fiscal landscape. That was harder than it should have been. Alright. Let's see here. So, we have Golconist pilgrims demanding access at Morela border. Okay. A considerable congregation of devout Golconist pilgrims from Dirty and Morela has congregated at the Point Dart border crossing, seeking entry into Rizia for the sacred pilgrimage. Allowing these pilgrims to cross into Rizia could boost global image as a bastion of tolerance and compassion. However, these groups may intend to visit holy sites that are currently restricted under our laws. I'm going to go ahead and allow passage. Feels like the right thing to do there. Alright, and then I guess we're heading back up here to Bronas for a meeting with Rusty Montoro. I think he's the Rizian Royal Gold guy, right? On the banks of the Spana River in Bronas stood Palace Verona. Almost as opulent as my own palace, it had once served as a summer residence for my ancestors, the Rubas family. Today is the home of Rosello Rusty Montoro, the CEO of Rizian Royal Gold, and the wealthiest commoner in the country. Yeah, that's what I thought. I stepped out onto the deck of the Rizania, there we go, as the yacht approached the palace's private dock. Hugo and Elena were already there, gazing out at the grounds. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Palace Verona without its water garden is no palace at all. I think it's to prove it myself, but what do you make of this, Your Majesty? I looked in the direction she was indicating. The water garden, once a tranquil oasis filled with blossoming flowers and gently burbling fountains, had been replaced with a gigantic gold-tiled swimming pool. Let's go with that. Remind me, how did a man like him take over the most powerful corporation in Rizia? He's got a knack for being in the right place at the right time. Legend has it he worked his way up from regional mine supervisor via a series of backroom deals and boardroom betrayals. Suddenly, a group of armed men exited the palace in single file. They had positioned themselves at equal intervals around the dock. They followed us with their eyes as we disembarked and walked towards the palace veranda. As I passed the largest guard, I noticed he's wearing a badge that read Palantor Security Solutions. He's got some mercs working for him. Palantor, are you Arcazian? He stared at me with a look of non-comprehension. Rusty rose from where he'd been sitting and rushed over to us.
Antoine, that's no way to treat our royal visitors.
The guard reluctantly bowed to me. Rusty ushered us past him and showed us to a set of chairs. The gold magnate's red hair was streaked with grey, but his eyes had a youthful mischief about them.
On behalf of all of us at the esteemed Rizia Royal Gold Corporation, I do hereby extend my cordial greetings.
He trailed off with a grin.
Heck, I was never one for formalities. Welcome to my palace, Your Majesty.
It's a pleasure, Rusty. He turned to Hugo and Elena.
Your Grace, Madam Treasurer, haven't had a sit-down with you two since the last man wore the crown.
My uncle gritted his teeth. You must mean my honourable brother, His Majesty King Valero. May he rest in peace. Now, Hugo, Rusty paid his respects at the funeral like everyone else. She shook Rusty's hand. He beckoned for us to sit as his butlers brought over water and fresh fruit. I suppose you haven't invited us over here to marvel at your renovations.
They're neat, aren't they? But no. I couldn't help but noticing you've been crisscrossing the kingdom lately. And no royal tour will be complete without a visit to your old friend Rusty. A shame Her Highness couldn't make it. Too occupied with her latest beau?
One dance is not a beau, Meg. We'll thank you not to speculate about Princess Venus' romantic prospects. Agreed. We're keeping the topic of my daughter's love life within the family.
Well, all right. I'll cut to the chase then.
He sat back and unbuttoned the top button of his shirt.
You know there would be no Rizia without Rizian royal gold.
I'd say the partnership between your company and the monarchy has benefited both of us equally.
Sure, Your Majesty. My point being, it's fair to say that what concerns me concerns this country. But right now, what concerns me is this.
He picked up a piece of paper from the table next to him. There's a flyer with a few sentences written in both Rizian and Basic.
Supervisors at my mines are picking up hints that the workers are holding after-hours meetings on the subject of unsafe conditions.
Have you tried, I don't know, improving those conditions?
Meeting workers' demands is like feeding zoo animals. The more you give them, the hungrier they get.
Have there been any accidents lately? Anything that might have triggered this? Rusty snorted.
Accidents have been part of this job since the dawn of time. You used to say you weren't a real miner until you were missing a finger.
That's barbaric.
Not all of us are lucky enough to sit on thrones our entire lives.
Hugo cleared his throat. Do you have a request of His Majesty, Mr. Montoya, or have you merely invited us here to complain?
Not complain. Warn. I'm not going to change a thing about the way my mines operate, so sooner or later this is going to land in your lap. RG's value has been going down since we last see it. New safety regulations might sound fine and dandy, but they'd be a death blow to our bottom line.
How much revenue would we stand to lose?
Hard to say. Implementing the regulations themselves would cost a pretty penny. And what do you think will happen if we pass those costs on to our trading partners? They'll hit the road faster than my first ex-wife.
Lena raised her eyebrows. We have been seeing more global competition on the gold market, unfortunately. But for now, our product is of high enough quality that Rumberg is willing to pay more for it. Yes, but if the prices rise further still, I'd rather not admit it, but Mr. Montoro may have a point. Your company will rebound when we get Zeal back.
I sure hope that's in the cards, Your Majesty. That little nub of land is home to some of the fattest gold veins my company's ever found. No way Vela could mine it all in 25 years.
You're saying the RG's mining operations in the region could pick up where they left off?
Yes, ma'am. Assuming we got it back without making too much of a mess.
Well, we still have the Meftum International Trade Zone, don't we?
Well, that's the other thing. I'm sure you all know about Alma Sultana.
The first female Prime Minister of Morella, a pioneer.
A pioneering pain in our behind. A woman's never picked up a chisel in her life, and she suddenly knows how to run the mitts. She started calling for regulation over there as well, or worse, nationalization.
Morella doesn't have unilateral power over the international trade zone. Rizia, Lesbia, and Vargson all have a say.
And guess which one of those Miss Sultana has been cozying up to on this subject? If she and Hegel get their way, Rizia will either lose his mining rights, or all boys have to pray to Millenniev before going to work every morning.
That still leaves us and Lesbia.
It's hard to say if we can count on Lesbia's cooperation. Of course, they abhor Vargson, but we don't have the friendliest history with them either. We'll have to keep a close eye on this.
Aren't most of your miners labor hands from foreign countries? Would the regulations even apply to them?
They're fixing to have it that way, yes. The folks pushing for these regulations, are a mix of labor hands and honest-to-goodness Rizians, with some support from the Sazons to boot. I see what they're going for, I really do, but giving them everything they want would damn near bankrupt me.
A little extreme, don't you think? I agree we should impose more regulations if necessary, but investing in safe and healthy employees could lead to profit in the long term, foreigners included.
Rusty took a big bite out of a watermelon slice. He wiped the juice off his chin.
Look, you know me, I don't mince words. I think you already realize that it's in both of our interests for you to back me up in this squabble. But hey, I'll sweeten the deal. Keep your administration's nose out of RG's business, and I'll sell you back the share I took from your father.
Elena pushed her chair back and stood up.
I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation. Where's the ladies' room?
Just inside. If you've never sat on a gold toilet, you're in for a treat.
She forced a smile as the butler escorted her out. Hugo, Rusty, and I glanced at each other. It seems like RRG's in trouble anyway. Of course you're eager to sell it off.
Gold is gold. As long as you let us keep doing things the way we always have, there'll be plenty of money to be made.
More gold revenue for our kingdom is tempting, but not if it comes to the expense of workers' lives.
You've been listening to the naysayers too much, Your Majesty. We miners know how to protect our own. I want to keep wasting your time. Do we have a deal or don't we?
I'll go with that one. I'll decide on the regulations when the time comes. In the meantime, I promise nothing. Rusty shrugged.
Suit yourself.
Elena stepped back into the room.
That was colder than I expected. Are you gentlemen finished?
Hugo practically sprang from his seat.
It's been a delight, truly, but we must be headed back to Portrazon. And here I was about to ask you to stay for lunch. So soon, Your Majesty.
Let's at least pretend to be polite. Please excuse my uncle's hastiness. Lunch would be lovely. Rusty cracked a triumphant smile.
Sorry, Your Grace. Got to pretend to be civil to me a while longer.
Hugo and Elena sat back down as the butlers began bringing out our midday meal. I don't know if I necessarily like taking that offer or not, so I don't know. Like, it'd be helpful to get that 15% back, but not passing regulations kind of goes against what I'm attempting to do, so, you know, that's alright. But we have 2 articles here from Geopolitica, so let's check those out first. So, Erdmarg signals joining non-aligned movement. The Kingdom of Erdmarg announces a decisive pivot towards the non-aligned movement, marking a strategic diversification from its historical alignments. This move, seen as a bid to craft alternative geopolitical paths distinct from neighboring Rumburg, challenges the prevailing influence of both Grace and the ATO. Coupled with the launch of an ambitious 10-year industrial development initiative, Erdmark's potential realignment could have far-reaching effects on the global stage, particularly by offering a third-way approach amidst the polarizing politics of larger alliances. Interesting. And surveying nears completion on a potentially massive new gas field in West Antician. A gas field in the western Antician Sea could contain massive new reserves, according to a geologist source interviewed by Geopolitico. The Kingdom of Rizia and the Grand Duchy of Palais are still surveying the borders of this recently discovered field, with conclusive ownership still yet to be determined. However, all signs already point to a resource of great strategic significance. The international community has its eye on this developing situation. Cool. Alright, so I don't see any other reports here, so I guess let's go to a royal visit to Monteclar. From anywhere in the city of Monteclar, you could look high into the hills and see the ruins of Fortress Azaro. Expanded and fortified over the centuries, it had served as a stronghold for the city's inhabitants from the early years of the Resident Empire till its destruction in the War of Rizian Succession. Today, the ruins served as a symbol of House Monteclar's resilience, and that of its governing house. Perhaps that was why Lucida had invited me here for a tour and private talk. For safety's sake, a wooden walkway had been constructed over the crumbling remains of the parapets. Lucida and I walked along it until we came to the northwestern corner. How do you like the view, Your Majesty? From here, we could look down into the valley, where the provincial capital sprawled across the fast-flowing Alka River and up into the foothills of the mountains opposite us. Imagine how this fortress must have looked 1,000 years ago. Incredible, isn't it? The fortress was closed off for our visit, but a crowd had gathered just outside its walls. We waved down to them, then turned away, following the walkway towards the former armory. Our aides and guards stayed a respectable distance behind. Not even the Markings could destroy this place, you know. Only when Rizia's noble families turned against each other did it finally fall. She paused and turned to face me. It took years for the Azaro and Taurus families to repair their bond. I hope our houses will remain harmonious through your reign. I don't see why that wouldn't be the case. You and your relatives have sworn fealty to the crown, have they not? Of course, but, well... Your father and mine were close, Your Majesty. General Tadius told me that he felt free to express his true opinions to the king with no fear of repercussion. Lucida bit her lip. She seemed uncharacteristically nervous. I'd like it if you and I had a similar relationship. I want to have that relationship with all of my counselors, Duchess. Nobody should feel like they have to hold back their opinions. Perfect, Your Majesty. Thank you. She was smiling, but I registered slight disappointment in her eyes. Let's go with that, because I have a feeling that's probably what you wanted. I'd like to get to know you better. Tell me about yourself. About myself? She seemed to be searching for words. That depends, Your Majesty. What would you like to know? Why did you follow in the Azaro family's footsteps? You could have chosen your own path in life. My path was chosen for me after my uncle was killed in the uprising. Even as a young girl, I knew that marked a turning point. My noble blood didn't make me safe anymore. Your words ring true. I had the exact same thought after my kidnapping. And you didn't feel the drive to do something about it? To armor yourself against such threats in the future? I joined the military so I'd never get caught by spies like that again. Alright, well, why aren't you married? As an Azaro, you should have been paired off the day you came of age. She grimaced. They had a match chosen for me, of course. But my father allowed me to break off the engagement when I joined the military. By the time I got out, I was considered too old to be of use in the magic arena. That's ridiculous. A woman like you should be sworn with suitors. A wry smile formed on her face. I'm not so pathetic as to base my self-worth on what men think of me. But thank you for the compliment. Do you have any questions of a less intimate nature? Let's see. Do you have any hobbies?
I've always enjoyed archery when I've had the time for it. And my father and I used to play chess together. We still do when he has a lucid moment.
Oh, maybe you and I can play someday. She gave me a taunting look.
If you're prepared to lose, Your Majesty.
Alright, well, I guess that's all I wanted to know, apparently.
I hope your curiosity has been satisfied.
Alright, is there anything you want to know about me?
Now that you mention it,
She looked me in the eye.
turn about as fair play, Your Majesty. Why aren't you married?
Romance isn't easy as a royal. You can never tell who truly loves you and who's just grasping for wealth and power.
I understand completely. That's why it's safest for us nobles to marry amongst each other.
She and I looked at each other for a long moment.
I should move on to what I wanted to say. My host and I had questions regarding a recent meeting at Salabay. So as to say, you're quite deep in conversation with the House Suzerain heir.
We were speaking of repairing the bond between our houses. As you yourself said, Rizia can only be strong if all of its royal families stand together.
The Sazons were never a royal family, just a group of merchants who fancied themselves higher than their true station. You know the entire house is still suspected to have ties to Arcasia.
I mean, that isn't surprising. Arcasia has eyes and ears everywhere.
They and their allies have spent the better part of this century trying to undermine us. All the more reason not to trust that man around your daughter.
My daughter is allowed to consort with whomever she wants. Surely you understand that as a modern woman.
As the woman in charge of this country's security, all I see is an agent of chaos attempting to get cozy with the royal family.
We had come to a small grassy patch in the shade of the fortress's southern wall. Lucida gestured for me to sit down.
I had one more thing I wanted to bring up while we were alone. When I took over my father's position on the Royal Council, he gave me a trove of his old files. Wedged between standard purchase orders and internal security reports, I found this.
She reached into her pocket and unfolded a thin square of paper. On it was a map of Palais, overlaying the outline of the Grand Duchy were arrows, diagrams of tanks and battalions, and hastily scribbled instructions. Some of them were in my father's handwriting.
Look at the date, 1949.
So they're plotting another attempt in Palais. That's not surprising.
Had this been attempted, it would have been a complete rout. All glory to King Valero, but perhaps it's fortunate that he died before this could be carried out.
Is it possible that whoever murdered him knew about this plan?
If he was murdered, that could have served as motivation, yes.
His dying wish was for me to take back the lands that were lost, but I'm no conqueror.
It's an outdated concept, invading territories based on centuries-old grudges. Of course, my family would disagree. My province never got over losing our access to the sea. But I don't see any merit taking back Palais, at least not for historic reasons.
Are you saying there are other reasons? She looked away.
I don't want to sound paranoid, but with Lesbia and ATO and Morella becoming closer to Vox and the CSP, I do wonder whether our neighbor will get swallowed up in the superpower conflict.
That is a legitimate worry.
Look what happened in Phelan in the 1930s. Arcasia United Cantana nearly destroyed by proxy in a rush to gain access to its oil. And now, Palais may be sitting on an even more valuable resource.
So, you think we should conquer Palais for its own good?
Conquer is such an old-fashioned word. Think of it as a chess game. Sometimes it's best to remove certain pieces from the board before it's too late. that doesn't mean I think we should attack Palais again. Using diplomacy to get them on our side would be a more effective tactic.
I know that. I've been aiming for diplomacy this entire time.
If we get into a dispute over the new gas field, it may be more difficult to stay the course. If you wanted me to, I could send a task force to Palais to monitor the situation more closely. My department has the funding already. It wouldn't eat into our budget.
That sounds wise. Do what you need to do.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
She began standing up. Let's see, let's just go with that one. I appreciate you coming to me with all this. Please feel free to express your unfettered opinions to me in the future.
You can count on it. It's nearly 4. Let me show you something.
She gestured to the stone wall behind us. A metal ladder led to the top of a small watchtower, now the fortress's highest surviving structure. Lucida scaled it in a matter of seconds. I followed her to the top of the tower. I'm guessing we're looking at the sunset or something. From this side, we could see Camp Delmas, the country's largest military training facility, stretched far into the distance with hundreds of barracks clustered around grounds that simulated all types of terrain. We looked down onto the main square. A platoon of some 50 soldiers, mostly men but a few women as well, was preparing for an exercise.
Listen closely.
A drummer to the side of the square beat out a complex rhythm on a snare.
Long, short, short, long. That's an inverted wedge.
The soldiers snapped into a V-shaped formation, narrow at the back and widening towards the front. Very impressive.
The best trained soldiers in South Macopa.
Another rhythm came from the drum, 2 rim shots followed by a rapid roll.
Extended lines spreading out into herringbone.
Almost unconsciously, she started moving along with the soldiers. But as she put her left foot down, the section of wall beneath it suddenly gave way. She began falling backwards. Obviously, we're going to try to catch her. I grabbed her arm and pulled her towards me to safety. She looked up at me in surprise, breathing heavily. Okay, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going to go, but I held on to her for a few long seconds. Her eyes softened as they met mine.
Nice reflexes, Your Majesty.
From below, a camera clicked. A news photographer had managed to reach the base of the fortress and capture a picture of us. Lucida hurriedly stepped away from me, brushed herself off, and turned to the guards.
Now, who the hell let that happen? You are to find this photographer and prevent the publication of this picture at all costs.
Don't parade our staff, Duchess Azaro, but yes, I don't want this photograph getting out. The guards nodded, one of them spinning off in the direction of the photographer. To be continued, Duchess Azaro. She gave me a coy smile.
I hope so, Your Majesty.
The smile was still on her face as we left the fortress. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I figured was going to happen there. Coolio, alright, and wow, we're at the end of the churn again. Jeez. I guess it makes sense as these churns go by a heck of a lot faster than they did in the base game, since we have this new system with getting things every churn. So I don't know, it's kind of cool. Let's see here. Well, we have a report and an article, so let's check those out. Alright, from Cadiz, gas field survey reaches conclusion. The Rizian surveyor ship sent to assess the boundaries of the Aureus gas field have returned to Cala Cadiz and reported their findings. They have discovered that at least half of the field lies within a 200-kilometer radius of the island, giving Rizia a claim to it. Our foreign ministry has contacted Palesian Duke Axel Reinhardt. It is expected a meeting will be arranged to discuss these findings and our country's next steps. Cool. Well, hopefully we can at least, make an agreement to split the gas field or something. I don't know. Let's see here. And then we have an article from Geopolitico. Swordland enters economic recession despite efforts. The shadow of recession has descended upon Swordland, marking a period of economic strife under President Evel Alfonso's leadership, reminiscent of Tarquin Sol's post-Civil War era. Despite Alfonso's aggressive pursuit of growth via new trade deals, his strategies are beleaguered by entrenched political opposition and a global economic slowdown. With analysts split on their session's longevity, the pressure mounts on Alfonso to navigate Swordsland out of economic peril before the end of his term, an endeavor fraught with uncertainty and the specter of history's judgments. Interesting. I mean, I guess technically we know how that goes, but it's still kind of cool to, see how it's going from the other side. Let's see. But yeah, since we're at the end of the turn, I'll go ahead and scroll through the decrees again, see if there's anything good I can do. Don't really have a whole lot available right now, so I'm not sure what I can do, if anything. But, yeah, I'll take a look at those before the next episode. And until then, though, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.